I think I was going to settle it down a bit. I wasn't expecting for the other guys to do it, but I didn't really expect that at all.
The Soviet responded, though.
Yes, yeah, they did. It's just, I just thought maybe the guys would get more confidence on them because they were sticking us and everything. I was just trying to, settle them down a bit.
Well, now you have to go to the dressing room. We're going to try and see whether we can find out something from the coaches later, but when the whole thing erupted over there, it was just you and the Soviet player. What got the others started?
I don't really know. I was just paying close attention to the guy that I was with. I really don't know how it all started. I mean, how the other was started.
Okay, they're looking for you now back at the dressing room because everybody's heading back there for a brief rest and I guess a talking to them, the coaching staff. Calm down. There's still a period and a half remaining in this game. Okay, well, Everett sanipass. Now let's go back upstairs to Don and Sherry.
Well, there are 6 minutes and 7 seconds remaining in the second period. And I understand, Sherry, that the time will be added to the third period. But this is something that we have just never seen in international hockey.
Oh, we certainly have never seen it. I think that's what we anticipate they'll do. The odd time that it is broken out in our hockey games in Canada, and it really doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it makes every newspaper. You can be sure this is. I would expect that's what they'll do. They'll flood the ice. They'll bring them in. They'll talk to the captains. They'll talk to the coaches, and they'll say, hey, okay, you guys, settle this thing down. That's an incident we're not proud of. Let's get it over with. The interesting point that you make, though, is how are they going to deal with those that were involved in the fight? That's the issue.
Well, almost every player on the ice had paired off and was trading punches with another player. So it wasn't just one or two that were involved in the actual fighting. Every player on the ice was throwing punches, and there were some great punch-ups, believe me, taking place out there. But the officials left the ice. They went off to the dressing rooms, so I don't know how they're going to deal with this because the international rules call for automatic ejection for fighting.
I think that, there's no question about that. It seems to me that if the game's going to go on, what they're going to have to go to are the people that initiated the whole skirmish. And they're going to have to identify who left the bench early, which is exactly what we do. Identify those people as the aggressors, as the people. They may not only just get a penalty, Don, they may get thrown right out of the game. And therefore, we're going to see less players, obviously, to rely on, and they could be some key players for Canada. But that's what I anticipate. The Russian was the first player to leave. I'm not trying to sound like a homer. When I saw it, he was ahead of him by 10 or 15 feet. Of course, when where we play the game, if somebody leaves the bench, we're not about to be outmanned. And as a matter of fact, Hoffman was getting walloped there by two guys as it happened, but everybody could see it. There was just so much action, and I mean, they were throwing them. I mean, this wasn't just dance with me, Henry. They were swinging, I'll tell you.
But it isn't going to do much for Canada's international hockey image. The pregame brawl with the United States the other night. Now this incident with the Soviet Union, there will be headlines, I'm sure, in tomorrow's newspapers throughout Europe.
Oh, you can be sure of that because we were a party involved in both actions, of course, if you haven't seen it, and you know how the rumor goes, and I say to you, and the Mr. and Mrs. They say, everybody says, well, who said it? Well, that's what they say, and pretty soon before you know it, and you can be sure we're going to be noted as the aggressors. The fact is it happens. Now we got to clean it up and get on with the game because that's what we're here to watch.
Well, this facility is still abuzz because the spectators in Czechoslovakia have just never seen anything like this in international hockey.
Well, I'll tell you, if you want a real example of it, I looked at you because I didn't know how to react. And you looked at me, we said, I couldn't believe it. And that's how amazed we were. You can imagine how the fans here were.
Well, a lot of times you will see pushing and shoving, a lot of stick work, some kicking in European hockey, but nothing like we just witnessed here at the stadium in Piestany. Right now, let's try and find out a little more. Let's go down to Fred Walker.
Well, Don, we have Wally Tannermuir, the trainer of the team here, and he was near the Soviet bench when all this broke out, but he also, I think, saw some of the Soviets being sent over the bench to go and get into that brawl. Did you, Wally?
Yeah, they sent two guys right off the bench right away when the altercation broke out there, and the coach sent two guys right off the bench. It's unbelievable. It's been a rough enough game as it is, for the first and second period, and I just can't believe him sending two guys off the bench to get into that altercation. That's where everything just broke loose.
Well, the Soviet coach has a reputation for being a little volatile at times. Maybe he's showing it out there.
Well, maybe that's his way of testing us, but like we can play that type of rough game, but we don't, we don't want to play that. We just rather go out and play an aggressive hockey game, but it's just getting out of hand.
Okay, Wally, you're on your way to the dressing room. We'll keep in touch and find out what does happen to you. Right now, let's go from Piestany back home to Canada, where Brian Williams and Don Cherry are standing by.
All right, thank you, Fred Walker. I agree with Sherry Bassin, a black mark for international hockey. There should be headlines over this incident. Don Cherry, it's the first time Don and Sherry talked about they were surprised. We looked at each other here in the studio. I couldn't believe the Russians were fighting back.
Oh, I like that. That was good. I'm surprised that it really hasn't happened before in international hockey. The kids said it after. A lot of people don't realize. If you saw during the fight, there was a lot of kicking going on. The one thing we don't do, and you're right, I feel sorry because you know whose fault it's going to be. It's not going to be the Russians' fault. It's not the USA's fault when it starts. It's always Canada. And the papers tomorrow, I can see black mark for Canada. No matter how good we play, they'll jump all over it. It'll be absolutely beautiful how it's always our fault all the time. But the kid was right at the end. A lot of kicking going along in this game, and you don't take kicking.
The officials were totally out of control. They lost control. They were out of control themselves, it appeared from here. Are you surprised they simply withdrew from the ice? Because, I mean, this was not a National Hockey League fight where I don't think they go at it 100%.
Wow.
This was a knock 'em down, drag 'em out, pure for a brawl. I thought someone might get hurt.
Well, what happened? They've never, ever been involved in anything like this before. The referee never saw anything like what. He didn't know what was going on. He just got off the ice. He didn't want to get hurt. Those guys didn't want to get hurt. That's why they got off the ice. But they didn't lose control. They never had control of it. And again, they didn't know what to do.
All right. According to the trainer, and again, we see this like you people do at home, it appeared the Soviet players left the bench. We don't know who's at fault. What do you do?
See, the big thing